Coming to you live from the Stream.TV studios in Hollywood, California, Pensado's Place is brought to you by Vintage King, The Recording Connection, and the Blackbird Academy.
We got another rocker. He's a friend of the show and a returning champ. A brand new ITL, bunch of updates on the Pensado Awards. It is chock full. You're at the place. It's Pensado's Place.
Yay! Hey, glad you guys could drop by. It's going to be a fun show. Got one of my good buddies, Ross Hogarth, on today. How you, Herbert?
Pretty good, pretty good. Busy, slam. That's not unusual.
You're looking at busy, slammed in the rearview mirror.
Well, a lot of us are, including yourself. But it's all going well, right?
Yeah. No. You know, I mean, I've so far exceeded my expectations for life. I'm just coasting on house money now.
Hope nobody finds out. That's what we're doing. We got a full one. Shall we get to it?
Let's do it.
Hey, guys. It is great to be back in the saddle for our weekly hang. Hope all is well on your end. We're grinding away on ours, and all of us together are just getting it in. That's what we do. Your likes and subscribes are part of our fuel. Big thanks from Team Pensado. The other part of our fuel is our sponsors. Let's give them a tip of the cap. Vintage King, of course, always there, always down. Really congrats on your continued growth and being a great company with super cool people.
There's rumors they put Guitar Center out of business.
Oh, wow. Well, we'll investigate that.
I don't think it's true, but it could be. We need to check.
We'll send out our crack researchers to find that out.
Did my improv lessons pay off just then? Did you believe me?
Stunning.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Stunning.
Sorry.
No, I
just been practicing, you know.
Ode to you.
Good, thank you.
The Blackbird Academy, the Ivy League of audio schools for us.
Yeah,
the excellence factor completely off the charts in both their studio and live courses and everything we're doing. We're putting together a program now. We'll announce it pretty soon regarding more education opportunities for you. Stay tuned. But in the interim, don't wait. Go to their site, contact them, tell them we sent you, investigate their upcoming classes, do some research on your own. Just fabulous. As an aside, they didn't ask us to do this, but we really like this family. Martina McBride just dropped her new album.
Ooh, it's good.
It's, in fact, I'm going to ask you about that. It's called Everlasting, and it's her take on soul classics, produced by Don Was. And when we were in Nashville last year for the taping of the Nashville special, we got a chance to hang with Don, who is a genius producer, a musician, president of Blue Note Records, and happens to be a world-class good dude on top of it. And together, from what we heard, just flat out nailed it. What'd you think?
Oh, man. You know, Martina's always been a favorite of mine. I've been following her career for a long time, and then getting to know John, it all kind of solidified, and you kind of understand that family unit.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Through John's generosity, we got to listen to some of the tracks as they were being completed, and I was pleasantly surprised. I knew Martina could sing. I knew she's one of the best of the best, but man, I didn't know she could do this.
She kills this.
Her roots are from this.
Yeah.
You can tell that it's not a I want to kind of do it thing.
Right,
it's
right.
From the heart, and
No
she knows
question.
what she was. It's really good.
Well put.
Everybody involved. Congratulations.
And like we always say, you learn from everything. So if you get the record, here's an opportunity for you to study a premier vocalist stylings, the production chops of Don Was, background vocals, all kinds of arrangements, live recording in the studio, mixes. Take advantage of this stuff. There's no information that is outside your purview for learning. So absolutely take
Well,
that.
that's so true.
Right?
Well, our guest today embodies that. He's
Absolutely.
the poster child for that.
Here's another cool point. Martina's putting this out herself. So just like a lot of you guys are doing, she's doing this independently, using the same tools you do. So if you choose to support, you're supporting a fellow artist, one of us, who is thinking independently, literally putting her money where her mouth is. So go to iTunes and support if you can. Great record to learn from. Great record for you and your significant other to get comfortable to. Let's call it comfortable, not just to hang. Well, it's one of those records. It's sexy.
I have no comment.
Listen, we listened to that record in the dark.
That's a dangerous area for me to comment
Okay,
on.
we'll leave that alone.
I've already embarrassed myself multiple times in Nashville. I ain't not commenting on anything sexual.
If you do get a chance to get the record, you can use it for multiple purposes. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Also, our folks over at the Recording Connection, they are doing their thing. Actually, Larry King just had them on his show. celebrating their way of teaching. Pretty cool, right?
The quote from Larry was so dead on.
Pretty cool.
I mean, he nailed exactly what they're about.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, and as we keep telling you guys, this is learning where you live, one-on-one mentoring from pros. This is really good stuff. So we're also constructing our next program with them. We'll be back to you soon with more from them. Last, but hardly least, the Pensado Awards.
Oh, it's first. That's pretty good.
Thank you.
You've studied a lot of Steve Lukather. I mean, a lot of, oh man, I had a joke and I blew it. Who's the drummer from Toto? Porcaro. Jeff Porcaro. You've been studying Jeff. It doesn't matter.
No, it's that I'm
That's
black.
a good place for the knife.
Like we have rhythm. That's all it is.
You do have rhythm.
Thank you. Sorry, guys, we were in a silly mood. So here's the deal. The award show momentum is crazy. It just continues to build and build. We are so thrilled about it. On Saturday, Dave and I and a couple of our pros, one which will be Andrew Sheps, and we're going to add another one. We'll be doing a Google Hang with our online producers to finalize the award categories. That takes place at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Will Thompson is in touch with all you guys who are producers who qualify. That's going to be a blast. We're going to answer a bunch of stuff, get some opinions, get your input. Then next week, we'll announce our co-hosts for the show itself. We've been working very hard on this, very quietly. Trust me, they are badasses. It is very hard for me not to tell you who they are this week.
I know.
But we're really thrilled with that. Also next week, we'll show you the design of the award itself. Then once all that's done, by the show that we do next week, we'll roll out the nomination process for all those folks involved, both pros and you enthusiasts, and off we go. So the relevant dates, here we are. April 12th this Saturday, or Saturday, April 12th, 10 a.m. Pacific for the Google Hang with online producers. The following week of April 14th, we'll announce the co-host. We'll show you the Pensado Awards design. And then by next week's show, we'll lay out the nomination process. It will be on and popping. And then, of course, the big daddy of it all, June 28th, Fairmont Hotel, 1 block from the beach. It's a big night. Tickets are $50. You can go to pensadoawards.com for relevant info and updates. You can link to Eventbrite to order tickets. We're putting reasonably priced hotel options there, so you have your choice and you can stay inside your budget. You'll be able to communicate with Will or me or Dave at our Facebook page or our site. Let us clarify one quick note, because we got a couple posts about this, and you and I talked about it. Mm-hmm. On all of our live events, we tend to do panels and seminars and teach and all that kind of stuff. This is an award show. This is a celebration, recognition of our audio community. We want to coalesce the community and bring them all together. We want to honor you, honor the pros, honor the enthusiasts. So we're not going to have panels and seminars. You'll have plenty of opportunity to talk to pros and hang out one-on-one and so on and so forth. But if we had panels and seminars, the cost of something already exorbitant would go through the roof.
Well, there'll be some teaching moments for sure. I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of the pro panels going to get just shit-faced, and you can kind of observe how that's done and how it's done at a professional level and various ways to get to the restroom before it's too late.
Very important.
So there's some teaching moments there.
Critical stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that.
No.
That's cool. Should we give an award for that? Or?
You know what? We could.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about
farthest from the toilet.
Oh my God. So we'll see you there. It's gonna. But on a serious note, it is amazing how it's coming together.
Yeah.
The professionals and that are on our team, the pros and you enthusiasts have just been incredible. The momentum's high, and we're going to try to do something that really stands up and that we all can be proud of, correct?
Absolutely. No other way to do it than that way.
Quick personal note before we get to the ITL. Overwhelmed, and thank you for all the birthday wishes. Super humbled. I mean, thousands of folks responded. Love you guys. Thanks so much. So, on to the good stuff. Dave, what's our ITL? Is it on our boy Gene?
Yeah, Gene Grimaldi at Oasis Mastering, where I have my studio. Shared some stuff with us. I use Gene a lot and love his work. And so, mastering engineers, they're a little different than us mixing guys, you know, but we got Gene to kind of break some things down for you. It's actually a two-parter, and I really want you to watch this. Because I'm real proud of the fact that we demystified some of the process and then we remystified some of the process. There's a lot of voodoo that goes on. Long introduction. Here's Gene Grimaldi. For today's Into the Lair, we're here at Oasis Mastering, where I have my studio, my mix room, and where you guys see a lot of the ITLs filmed. Oasis is the home of Gene Grimaldi and Eddie Schreier. Eddie's an amazing mastering engineer. I owe a lot to him, so does Gene. Gene masters a lot of my stuff, almost all of it, and I asked him if he would share some insights into the world of mastering with us. So Gene, welcome, my friend.
Thanks, Dave. Pleasure to be here.
Gene's done Lady Gaga, a couple of records with her, the good ones. Tamar Braxton, Paramore, Iconopop, Lana Del Rey, Carly Jepsen, on and on and on and on. I think he did a Beatles reunion record last year that had all 4 Beatles in it. Pretty amazing thing. You got to check that one out. Hadn't been released yet. Gene, I haven't seen you since about 10 minutes ago.
That's right.
We're right down the hall.
Yeah.
If you leave Gene's room and go 40 feet, my room's on the left, and very similar to Gene's room. Although I think Gene's is a little better, but it should be. He's got more skill than I do.
I don't disturb you too much, do I?
You know what you do sometimes?
Yeah.
You rock it pretty loud in here, Gene.
Oh,
every
man.
once in a while.
That's those subs, right?
Yeah. Man, we got.
Well, you have them too.
I do. Do I bother you?
Not really.
Okay, good. I have turned up a little bit. If you could get every mixer to do one thing in terms of their end of the process, what would that be?
Mix at 24-bit. This way, you're not compromising the audio quality in any aspects. You're delivering as high as possible.
So you really
Right
love
now.
me because I give you 32 float.
There you go.
That's better, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
He gets it.
Got to keep my mastering engineer happy, and you should too. Would it be an accurate statement to say that when I'm mixing and using my skill set differently than you are, because I'm kind of focusing on combining individual elements, but what you receive is a 2-track mix, and
Yeah.
you're looking at more of an overview concept.
I'm kind of stuck with 2 tracks, and
Right.
in mastering,
Stuck is a good word when I give you something.
So in mastering, I mean, without making a phone call, sometimes we can fix issues in a mix that are subtle. When you have a really good mix, and you can enhance them and bring out, let's say, the vocals, because vocals are really important in a pop track, or maybe guitars or the kick drum. And the way I do it is I do it in sections. Like I'll pick like the low frequencies, separate it to the mid frequencies, and then the high frequencies. And I'll look at the relationship between the tracks in all those segments and adjust accordingly with EQ. And it's real precise what we do.
Yeah, I know it's precise. 'Cause
It's really precise.
I've seen you do 1/10 of a dB increments. Don't tell a lie. You can hear 1/10, right?
Well, you can hear it in relationship to popping the EQ in and out.
I'm lucky on a good day if I can hear 3 dB. But so this balance that you're trying to do are like basically basically we use the same tools. Like we were kidding earlier, we make things lighter. What does Craig say? Louder, darker, brighter, duller, and so you do this with EQ and compression, right?
Yeah.
Those are your basic tools.
And gain.
And how does that differ when I'm using those tools? I tend to think of the individual components, but let's say I bring you a mix and the vocal's not loud enough. Describe philosophically.
The process.
Yeah. You would isolate the frequencies that the vocal occupies.
Totally. It's like it's usually it's going to be the mid band. So
Okay.
think 1K, 2K, 3K,
Right.
4K, that kind of thing. So, and going to take a stab there, with some EQ, and either raise it or lower it if it's a little too loud, or use multi-band compression. It comes from just listening to lots and lots of music, and know what it sounds
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we're just selling our taste, aren't we?
Yeah. So.
One of the things I like about what you do that I think distinguishes you as one of the top guys is you do have taste, and you're not trying to create a technical masterpiece. You're trying to create an emotional masterpiece with feeling and something that the end listener and user is going to relate to. And that's one of the reasons I come to you so often. Guys, you might think that Gene only works with the stars and the top guys, and you'd be right. But save those nickels and dimes and grab a mastering job from him. You'll learn a lot. He's a good cat. And this has been a pleasure for me. I hope you guys learned something from this. I know I did, and I hope you did too. So next time, thanks. Bye.
You know his work. He is a friend of the show, a returning champion. He doesn't need a whole lot of introduction. We are pleased to welcome to this table the one, the only, Ross Hogarth.
Yay.
What up, bro?
Thank you.
Good to
Thanks.
see you, man.
Good to see you, man.
Good to see you. Dave, fire away.
And
Nice to be here,
I love
guys.
me some Ross Hogarth. I got to tell
we
you,
do.
we
We
have so many things in common, and so many things not in common. Ross, your background just fascinates me because it's very similar to mine in a lot of ways. Your dad, very, very, very well-known, top 5 illustrator, artist of all time, won prestigious awards in Paris and everything. Growing up in that environment, how has that influenced your mixing in terms of the way you see and do you visualize big elements of the mix?
I do. I part of it is I can't help how I was brought up. My father being not only an educator, starting the School of Visual Arts, but also being the person that kind of created the term graphic novel was created because of my father's work as the illustrator of Tarzan.
Oh, wow.
My father was the original illustrator of Tarzan.
Get out of here.
And so Tarzan being the first book that was turned into, as a graphic novel.
Yes.
How do we put Tarzan through the page? How do we make him move? How do we create an action figure on a static page?
Oh, amazing.
And so I was brought up, before I was mixing records, before I was even in the process of thought of production, and I was brought up with art in my life, and my father showing me how he would move, here, son, this is how I'm moving Tarzan through the page, so you want to turn the page to go to the next page, or how the person's going to want to see next week's, because where Tarzan ended up in the newspapers is where, the Peanuts have been forever, which is the main page. Amazing. So for me, it's about a visual, it's about color, it's about depth of field, it's about width. And also that, Dave and I were talking, and I just have to step into the live realm of it, because I grew up playing music, playing in bands, the whole being on a stage or watching music. I watched, I was a big fan of music before I even, that's what we are.
That's right.
That's what we do.
Yep.
So for me, a big part of mixing, a big part of creating an end product comes from, looking at paintings and looking at, great images and, finding how do you create depth? How do you have width? How is there color? And then in the end, for me, music is closing your eyes and how that affects me without my eyes open. How do my ears then, how have I translated my visual sensibilities into an oral?
Do you hear in colors sometimes?
I hear in all shades. Sometimes it's not. Some mixes are not actually that colorful. Some mixes are actually shades of grays and you pick something that is your color, like that splash of color that occurs. It could be your solo. It could be second verses for me, and I'm jumping into a completely different place.
Go for it. I love it. I love
Second verses for me are that open territory where you almost have to do something special, because if they've heard a verse and a chorus and they're never going to hear anything different again, and that second verse rolls by and you don't do something, colorful, then the listener kind of goes, okay, next, And the second verse is where you can do it in your arrangement, like Lil George used to do. Little Feat, his second verses are like
great slide player.
He'll go for 6 bars. He won't go for 4, and that's where that vocal can jump out of a corner of the speaker or a shaker. The grays are the shades of gray for me are percussion instruments. They're not. Those are not.
That's odd.
That to me is not like a a B3 run that shows up on the second half of a verse
it's a
or
nuance
something.
that makes
it's a
it different.
nuance, but man, when it shows up and that shaker comes in on the second verse or tambourine or something, that to me all of a sudden lifts your whole arrangement, the whole song, and the interest factor comes way up. So I do think of those things in color.
I love it. I love it.
You got that's a Latin South Florida concept, percussion to lift things up. So the age-old dilemma that we mixers have is: do you put the hi-hat on the left or the right side of the mix? What do you do?
Drum. I'm a
From drummer's
I'm a
perspective?
drummer's like when I'm
You played drums.
Yeah, I was a drummer originally. So
Love drummers.
I took all the stuffing out of the arms of the couch. They put me in the basement with a kid. It was like, okay, it's cheaper buying new furniture or
Exactly.
give the kid a drum
You had a
kit.
nice little Ludwig kit, though.
I had a nice. Actually, it was a Slingerland.
Oh,
It was a
Slingerland?
Blue Pearl Slingerland. Yeah.
nice, nice.
One up, one down. Right to the hi-hat.
And you knew that music was going to be your life at a very young age. You started playing really young. The thing that caught my attention, and that it's a question Herb and I get a lot. 11 days after graduating from high school, you got the hell out of New York and you were in California. Now that's commitment, and your parents supported that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go deep into my parents' life, but I kind of, and again, with full respect to I love both my mom and my dad, but they were going like this in life, and so somewhere way out there they had a family, and
Right.
so
It all kind of came together.
So yeah, and very supportive on each level. My mother, who's still alive, she gave me the gift of social, looking at the world. My mom she's all about peace and freedom. Her best friends are the Seegers, passed away this year. So she gave me a look on that life and what it's like to try to make a difference in the world.
Amazing.
And my father gave me the gift of, and she was a musician too, but he gave me the gift of art and aesthetics and so yeah, I ended up in California. Basically, I got to get out of New York, man. I gotta go where I'm called to. I've got to get out of New York. I'm getting in trouble. I might be dead if I never leave this place.
Right.
You get out to California, and you had to make a decision. You very humbly said that you knew that you weren't the greatest of great musicians, but you were a really good, solid musician. But during that process of becoming proficient in those instruments, you found yourself at a very young age traveling the world as a guitar tech for some of my heroes. Lowell George and other people.
Wow. What was that experience like?
Humbling.
Learned a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one word that comes to mind is, there's a word that we've thrown around and is thrown around, and that's service.
Yep.
And humbling in the fact that when you're working for people who are better than you at what they do, that's one of the gifts of life is to put yourself in a situation where someone is better than you. I mean, go find a situation where my whole life I've wanted to be challenged. I don't think that there's nothing really safe ever really in my life except for my relationship with my wife, which is the only place of certainty that allows for every day to be different, constant change. But back then, obviously, I wasn't with her, but yeah, no, it was humbling to be on the side of the stage and tuning, all of Lindley's instruments, Rye's instruments, or setting up drums, because I was a drummer and a guitar player, I would do everything. And because as you see, I'm kind of a bulky guy, I would carry everything too. I'd be humping, Smitty Smith's B3 for Rye.
Amazing.
So
Amazing.
it was like, yeah, and it is I learned ear training. That was my, going to school was working on the road. I learned how to make sure that when the artists I worked for stepped on the stage, that I wanted every cable to work. I didn't ever want to have anything go, I wanted them to be able to play music and not think about anything but playing music. And that was I decided I was going to be the best at that. And not like an ego thing, but I was pretty darn good at what I did, and it actually elevated me quickly through the ranks of being, punk kid, to hey, let's hire him.
Exactly.
And let's get that guy.
To your point, I think when we go out and do our live event stuff, it's trying to recreate that scenario for it's not all kids who come to our thing, so that you can sort of get a sense in a compacted way. Here's what happens when a mentor hangs with you and you learn from them and it raises your game, and then you realize you go away and our good friend Kevin Dukes, when I managed him 100 years ago, we were learning from people like Steve Gadd and Richard, and they would just make us sit and learn, and we got better and better. And to your point, then you get designated as, oh, you're pretty good. Let's move you to the next level. And before you know it, all of a sudden you have this responsibility because you spent all that time practically learning. And you know, when we encourage people to go to these schools or the other things that we've selected, that's the point. It's not to make somebody money. It's like when you come out of that, you separated yourself in the game completely. And
well, you guys were talking about the Blackbird Academy when you came on at the beginning of the show, and I so support. I mean, I personally actually put my time into helping. We do Skype. Mark Rubel, who is one of my dear friends, is a teacher, and so we do Skype. We'll from my studio to there, and I mean, and basically asking me questions. And so I totally believe that this show and those types of courses and stuff are what really makes a difference. And I've said it to you guys, and I've acknowledged you guys, again and again. Yeah. This show isn't really. This is not about like me coming on and like, oh, great, Ross gets to like, or Dave, great, let's talk about how great we are. This is awesome. Herb, you're awesome.
Well, Dave and I do that.
But this you try. I'm here to try to say something or give some piece of some kind of whatever that if that's something that a person out there can take with them, and it helps them on some level. That's that's really what we're about. Because when it was given to me, when and I a lot of it I attribute. David Lindley was one of the most influential people in my life.
El Rayo X, God, one of my favorite records. And you worked on El Rayo X.
Well, yeah, no, I went from being his tech, with JB to that record, to working on that record and working
Jackson
with him.
Brown.
Wow.
Yeah, and being his guitar tech and being in the studio and being his trusted confidant, and Lindley would pull me aside. And God rest his soul, Greg Ladani would be sitting there, and he'd be looking at me like, who is this punk kid that Lindley is asking how his guitar sound is?
Amazing.
But because I'd been on tour, because I'd worked in the studio, because I'd worked, on the road with him, now I'm in the studio, I know his sound.
Exactly.
So how does it translate out of the speakers? And that was, for me, a really big lesson, was like, he would say to me, go out to the amp and make sure it's me, make sure it's my sound. Make sure it's coming out of the amp right, And then I'd walk in the control room and it'd be like, okay, that's the engineer's job, is to translate that sound, at least for starters, because that's what he wants. He wants that in here to come out of those speakers.
Period. That's right.
And then, and then it's for the engineer to say, well, we can do this to it or whatever. But when you've got a David Lindley who's taken his time with an amp builder like Howard Dumble to build him amps, and and it's coming out of his lap steel or whatever, the tone is the tone.
That's right.
He had a collection of the quirkiest instruments and amps of anybody, and they all sounded great when he played them. But also, let me say something directly to the audience. Running on Empty by Jackson Brown, David Lindley, I heard his parts on that, and I won't say it changed my life, but it damn near changed my life, because he hits the same 12 notes we all hit, but there's something different about that guy, and it's so sad that he's not that well known.
In certain circles, he's revered. In other circles, he's not well known. You're right. And
Crazy About a Mercury, what a great song. Did you work on that?
All that stuff, yeah. That was my cutting my teeth, man. That was like that period of time was really, it was like learning. I don't want to say master's degree because, whatever, that's like way pompous, but I really learned a lot from him. I really did. I learned so much from him about, and also some negatives. Like, he would bring someone into his band, like this guy Ross Babu, who was really colorful on stage and exciting, but really didn't get along with the other guys, Ian Wallace and Jorge Calderon and the band. Ross Babu was just sort of like, he was an oil and water guy. And finally, I mean, when the but what sort of caused that tension caused great music. You know, so I learned like sometimes what's causing tension in a band is actually what's causing
magic.
It's really because that El Rayo X is the magical record. Not that Win This Record isn't a great record, but Babu left the band, and then Win This Record's a little more safe because it doesn't have this guy in there that's pushing everybody all over the place.
If we were to name the bands that are successful because of tension, we would be here for the next 6 hours.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of that.
Don't ever trust happy people.
I love when you say that. It's like I'm smiling and I'm thinking, I better stop smiling. I don't want to be mistrusted because
You can't trust them. They're hiding something. With
But
all
you said
that.
content is okay.
Contentment is what you should strive for.
Yes.
But not happy.
Happy that ain't what.
Okay, well then ask the question.
You can't even do it.
I
can you?
can't. I'm just naturally happy.
So,
Yeah, exactly.
so let's fast forward a few years. A different kind of truth, the Eddie Van Halen record, or the Van Halen record.
Yeah.
I keep thinking there's only one member of the Van Halen group, but I guess there's more.
Oh, yeah.
I'm such a big fan of Eddie's. Eddie changed my profession of guitar playing as we know it. Take me through some of the processes. Like, you had a good, strong, heavy background in heavy metal groups like Coal Chamber, Devil Driver, or Driver Devil?
Devil Driver.
Yeah, Devil Driver. The great records you made. All of that brought you to that record. The process of trying to make that record, you have to be loyal to the fans that exist and make a Van Halen record, but yet you don't want to make the same Van Halen record that's been made for quite a while. Not that they were all the same to begin with, because they did grow. What was when you sat down to work on that project, what was going through your mind initially in terms of what you wanted to bring to the table?
Well, one of the things I brought and I feel I bring to the table is I have a lot of experience dealing with people, and that was going to be the first record with David Lee Roth since they broke up with him in 1984.
Whoa!
So for me, it's just, can I actually see this to the other side? I know that sounds, there's nothing musical about that inherently in its conversation.
Huge factor.
Is can I actually stick it out through the volatility that is going to be there?
Yeah.
Because it's not the first guy. It's it's well documented that there's volatility in that camp.
Sure. Absolutely.
At the same time, the desire was there amongst them, amongst Dave and Ed and Al, with Wolf in the sort of, he's Ed's son, so he's doesn't yet have a voice in that say of politics. But so for me, it was like, what do I do? How do I use all of my people skills that I've acquired over the years, or hopefully I've developed, somehow to stay in this business, to see that to the other side, and then bring my engineering skill to it and my belief in the DNA. And really, I'm a big fan of all, past, whatever it might be, Allman Brothers, and anything that we talk about that we love together. It's all building blocks. And whenever you work with these bands that are iconic in the DNA of our American music, which, Van Halen is very much in the DNA.
Sure.
You can't get away from, when you hear, the minute you hear of Running with the Devil, that's Running with the Devil. You don't have to hear.
That's right.
You don't even have, it's like, how many times, so when you're working with those iconic bands, the one thing you don't want to do is take it so far away from what people are going to want to hear that they absolutely hate you for it. And at the same time, you have to bring something to the table, or else kind of like, why am I there? It's a balance between being a really good photographer and having some point of view. So one of the things that I think I worked with Eddie on, and now he's still really into, is the use of ribbon mics on his cabinets.
It's odd that he had never tried that before, isn't it?
Yeah, well, part of it is because, and I say this a lot about the Royers, is that ribbon mics, with general, if you weren't using like a Beyer 160, which it's almost something not really ribbon about a Beyer 160, to get technical for a second. It's a ribbon mic, but it doesn't have the massive proximity. It doesn't have the, that mid-range. Beyer at 160 is almost like a dynamic mic for a ribbon mic. It's really weird. And that's why it was so usable on a guitar cab. But you try to take a RCA 44 or a 77 and you put it right up on the grill cloth of a
Blammo.
Bam, goodbye. You're going to be re-ribboning, and that's what, and I make no bones about saying this. Like, Dwayne Barron, who is, the co-producer on the Girls, Girls, Girls record with Tom Werman. And, a couple of us, were engineers on that record with them. And when we were doing guitars at Rumbo, I was blowing up a lot of 77s and 44s.
My guy.
Yeah. And I'd go to Daryl and I'd say, well, you're making really good money, on the band, so just let's keep re-ribboning these mics because they sound really good, but they would be farther back from the cabinet. So with the Royers, you can put them right up on the grill cloth, right in phase with a 57. There's videos I've been doing that are out there about this. Don't need to go into it, but
into it.
Well, the bottom line is, and your viewers can go find these. They're on the web now. I've been doing these with our good friend Tim Pierce. We went in the studio to kind of show and tell how you use two mics on a cabinet in phase. And I showed that to Eddie. I was like, I'm going to put up a ribbon. And you don't go in on the first day and say that. You basically, you have to go in, you have to assess the situation. You basically go, if there's nothing for me to alter here for the better, I'm not going to touch it. But if I feel there's something I can alter or make better, I can't just, go in there and pretend like, that's not my gig. That's not who I am. Right. And I don't think that benefits you in your gig to say it out there to the, to your younger kids.
Did you use the tube version of the 122?
Yeah, I started with the 121 because that's what I had on me but quickly changed to the 122V, which is sort of the, that's the Cadillac, Ferrari, whatever, Maserati of their microphones. It's not an inexpensive mic, but it has the depth, it has the reach, and again has all the attributes of the 121, where you can put it right up in phase with the 57. And that was one of the things I offered to Ed. And the other concept I offered to Ed was, let's try splitting to multiple heads. And if he had done this before me in the way that we did it, it didn't feel like because I felt like when we got into the discussion on it, it was sort of like, oh, really? Okay, well, let's try that. Because Ed is the kind of guy, you try something with him, you let him, you offer him the idea, but you let him just run with it because he's the guy. His hands are on the faders. He's very hands-on, and it's really awesome. I mean,
so the two heads. Were you trying to create more space in the middle for Wolf and for the kick and snare? Is that the concept?
And also to spread out.
It takes up a lot of space.
Yeah, that much low end, that much distortion, that much energy creates a lot coming down the middle if it's mono. I mean, and then Alex really loves, and I've said this before, he plays a 26-inch double-headed kick drum. So that's not like when we think of R&B and the tight punch, boom, with attack, smack. 26 doesn't give you that. Even a 24 doesn't. The minute you have a double-headed kick drum, it's going to resonate. It's going to go woo. Yeah. And so when that energy is in the middle and you got the guitar energy on top of that, on top of Wolf's bass energy, it can get really messy. It's really hard to.
But you solved it really well. I mean, that record is sonically my favorite record they've ever done.
Oh man! Well,
did you do their live stuff? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, he's now taken again. It was interesting because his live rig, as with other guitar players like Lukather, they go with their effects wide, and then the mono is a dry signal for live. So they actually split their effects through two cabinets and two amps or two heads, and then mono's dry. Where in the studio now, I mean, with the stuff he's messing around with now is even like bringing back the Marshall into the center and his other two heads. And what we did was two heads, two cabs, and two mics, 57 Royers on each side. And that way you get this mono stereo sound, and it creates a center.
I almost killed both my old lady and her dog because she took my car after I had Jump Live by Van Halen at Mach 10 when I got out of the car. So when she started the car, she said the dog just flipped over to the back seat. And I've been on this Jump kick.
I wonder why Peter was on our Facebook page.
Yeah, precisely, for the last 3 or 4 days. And some of it is just the power of the record. And Alex's motor is just so
it's amazing.
There. I mean, it's just and I like being consumed by power with music. And when that's hitting you, and my car fortunately has this great stereo system.
Great system.
It's ridiculous, and I just get lost.
Something that Dave and I were talking about earlier was like the fact that imperfections create.
I love
like,
that. I love
like imperfections are kind of what makes
character.
It's character, yeah.
Yeah, man.
And it's and that's part of part of what Van Halen is the fact that like when you listen to Alex, it's almost like the kick drum is swinging in a different place than the top of the kit, and it comes from a jazz stand, like
it comes from John Bonham.
It's Bonham, but Bonham comes from jazz too, so they're all kind of going back to like Elvin Jones and Max Roach and when you put that kind of swing against where Ed's swinging, and then you bring in Wolfie now, who is coming from a much different place. He's coming from like he's a kid and he's on top and he's driving, and that whole thing creates like it's a newer version of what they do. It's in the DNA.
Yeah.
And I mean the imperfections are kind of like where music's at. I mean for me that's like no matter what style of music you're working on, Let
me play devil's advocate. Like all of our clients idolize everything from the 60s and part of the 70s, and those things have all this perfection. So they idolize it, they want to copy it, they don't have any original ideas, so they go copy it. But then they sterilize it by trying to make it perfect, which defeats the whole purpose of trying to copy it. What the F is going on there?
Yeah.
It's hypocrisy, right? Or am I wrong?
You're told. I mean, yeah, there is just something so interesting about absolutely tuning and quantizing and absolutely like gridding music, but then like sonically trying to make it like the 60s or something, or whatever, the 70s, or lo-fiing it, or I'm always a little bit I feel like I'm a little bit fish out of water when I'm listening to certain modern,
Well, to here again, devil's advocate, the whole concept behind quantized drums is to have something that's not moving and create some sort of a hypnotic foundation that you can move all kinds of stuff on top of it. Now, when everything's not moving, then you have some problems. Then the only thing that's moving is the vocal. And so as a mixer, I have to put a lot of weight on that vocal to keep that interest going over that even foundation. So the concept originally behind program music was to provide that hypnotic bass on top of which you put a live cymbal overdub or a live hi-hat over it, some things that would emphasize the difference by putting it against a foundation of sameness. Now, when the whole track is the same, that's just not creativity. I got a question for you.
Okay, wait, can I throw out my analogy on this one?
Sure. I'm the host.
I got a killer analogy, and it's going to make it quick. My analogy about a fat groove, I'm
PH 18.
Is think about driving down the road and think of the white lines. Imagine if that was concrete and those were concrete walls, and you were going down the road. You couldn't like kick back and like drive like this.
No.
Man, you'd be like white knuckling it because you wouldn't want to scrape the side of the walls. To me, that's when the drums are gridded and the bass is gridded and the guitar player comes in and he doesn't have any room to move. Because if he goes on either side of the groove, often he shows up like he's rushing or slowing down. And so now he's white knuckling it. And in general, that music for me feels very much white knuckled. Like it's
sterile.
And the fat groove is when it's doing that.
But
now the width of the...
Let me stop you here, big boy.
Good.
In order to do that, the band has to be in the room at the same time, rehearsed with the same movement, or else you get a train wreck bigger than the train wreck you would get with a programmed drum. So in other words, like let's say the Stones. In the Rolling Stones, the groove meister is Keith. So everybody follows the tempo and timing of the guitar. Now Keith's timing, as we know through supplemental recreational use of certain compounds, can be a little moving around. But yet, Charlie would follow him so perfectly that the groove had a feel and a completeness to it. But if Charlie played perfect and Keith played his way, you get a bigger train wreck than you do following a tight drum. So I don't think either one is better or wrong. I think much like everything else in music, the practitioner and the performance, like you advocate, always comes through. And sometimes types of music have different types of performance necessities.
But you offered something. You said live hi-hat or whatever. Like the minute you offer something in there that starts to widen the groove out, then everyone that gets to play on that gets to live a little bit more inside of their natural feel because there's something more natural in that feel. And not to go like really off tangent, but when drum machines first came in, particularly like, you know, the Linn 9000, which was the first one that had sounds that weren't...
Wendell?
Well, I'm just saying, like the original Linn, we all know those drum sounds because they were just, they're
kind of bad.
Yeah, and the Linn was the 9000 was the first one you could put like sounds in that you could sort of change your sounds and sort of, and that was, even when you quantized with that, the engine inside that thing still sort of moved.
It was very loose clock.
Right? And that one felt natural, but within the confines of it was still, like it was 125 or whatever, but it moved just enough that...
No, we just had this discussion with L.A., right? Because he was a drummer and he pulled up some of the old catalog and stuff he had done and why the Linn worked. And a lot of it was that movement that made it feel kind of human.
Yeah, and then when computers came in, this is where it really changed for me because I love the Linn 9000, man. I was like always trying to incorporate that even into like rock music. Like my Linn 9000, the one that I own, says like Danny Korchmar, Greg Ladani. It's the one that was used on like Boys of Summer.
Nice.
Wow.
Oh,
I mean that, you know, Danny was one of the...
I love the feel of that record. That actually says why that feel of the record felt so good.
Because Danny was really, you know, Cooch was just so into
honestly.
So into his drum machine, and he would incorporate that into his productions.
But you do know that you can use a template that has that feel and make anything sound like that.
Does it really work?
Yeah.
Seriously?
In the hands of a skilled person like me, yeah.
Okay. All right.
And a modest person as well too.
But you know what? I'm gonna
change.
You said that when you're building a house, if the frame isn't perfect, then the rest of the house collapses. So, is live drums, is it a perfect frame, or is a drum machine a perfect frame on which to build your house?
I mean, I'm definitely not the absolute, I'm not a purist. I've never been a purist. I love when stuff's programmed right, and I love programmed against drums, and when live drums are wrong, oh my gosh, it's such an imperfect frame you can't build your house at all. And when programmed drums are poorly programmed and they're done, they're just, oh my gosh, give me a live drummer.
It's like a sore tooth.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not trying to play both sides of the coin here.
No, I agree with you. I'm just playing. I'm playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, because I mean,
I'm paid to do that.
I let myself off the.
Yeah,
myself off the hook on this one. I wasn't going to toss you a softball there.
No, not at all.
But I'm a big believer in when a drummer is the right drummer. I have to say, I am not really that into Beat Detective and those kinds of things on a live drummer. I love a real drummer to play who can play against a machine. And if you're going to use real drums, then it's best to have the machine down first and put the drums against it. Because if you put the drums down and then try to fit a machine inside of that, you're going to ultimately have to Beat Detective the drums, because the drummer wasn't playing to the machine.
Right.
So for me, when I'm using live drums on anything, I try to make sure that my programming has some elements that I'm going to keep, so that I know whether or not I want to drop the drums or whatever, because I really don't love real drummers being turned into machines. I just think that's like, why even bother? There's enough good drum sounds out there. You might as well just program them.
Right. Speaking of softball.
Yeah,
let's loosen up that arm, sir, and get ready for batter's box. Are you ready?
Well, I'm finalizing this. Did Eddie record at full volume?
Does he record at full volume?
Stage volume?
Oh, no, I don't. No. It's just too. Yeah, there's a certain point where anything just loads up a room, and mics can't take that kind of.
Well, speaking of guitars, that's your first batter's box question.
Okay.
Guitars.
Guitars, period. Guitars.
What comes to mind first?
Silvertone.
Nice.
With the case? The speakers?
And the amp in the case.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
I owned one.
Yeah.
Vocals.
SM7.
Ooh, overheads.
B&K 4011s.
Ooh, great. Anything but Coles. Reverb.
Now Bricasti.
Oh, man,
Sorry.
my unit. I should have never said anything about that thing. Snares.
Superphonic, 6.5 Superphonic.
Oh, wow. I'm going to have to check that with Cole. I don't know what that is.
John Bonham snare, 6.5. Ludwig
cool.
Superphonic.
I'm still going to check it with Cole before I give you a grade. Your one island piece of gear, trapped on an island, what would your one piece of gear be if you had a generator?
Whoa.
Nothing with a hand crank.
Hamsters.
Am I recording or am I mixing?
Hey,
I'm
man,
sorry to have to.
I can't give you that information.
Oh,
I
shucks.
got to get an advantage. If you miss
Okay.
this, I win.
Royer SF24 stereo microphone.
Wow.
Ooh,
Bastard.
damn.
Bass.
Hofner.
Adult. I can't do it. I can't do it.
Oh, he's got,
You got it.
It's the cheapest gear that you used on a hit record.
Silvertone guitars. Come on, that was
Oh,
25 bucks or whatever. I don't even know how much that was. Yeah. so-
Wow.
yeah.
Okay. The best adult diapers for incontinence.
Oh, please.
Okay. Stereo bus.
Dramastic Obsidian compressor.
Wow. The bass speed is like crazy.
There's a difference between winning and showing off.
Yeah, no question. No, but
You do not make the host look bad. Didn't
already
you read the
asked.
manual?
I mean,
Okay. Guitar pedal.
Boss Chorus.
The blue one?
Yeah.
I love it.
wow.
Synthesizer.
Moog. Mini Moog.
Cool. I give up. I'm tired of this.
Well-
I don't want this no more.
Between the bass speed and the bass running speed, it's like pow, pow, pow. It's like he's rounding third. Shit, he just hit the ball.
You got me on the desert island because that's like, whoa, desert island. You know what?
Well,
what
it was
am I
almost a
gonna?
rundown, but,
Yeah.
but the guy dropped the ball,
What
so
am I
you got
gonna-
through.
you know?
You got out of that. That was
Yeah.
that was a good one. Well done, sir. Chongor, are you over there in the corner office?
Yup, hanging out here.
Yeah. You got a couple questions for our guy Ross?
Yeah, we do. Let's do
He
this.
is a neighbor of both you and I, so do your best, sir.
I got it. This question from Juan Valencia. A common feature in your work from Miley to the Bronx are rich, prominent vocals. What's your general approach to mixing vocals that you didn't record?
Okay, so the first thing always for me is to find the frequency that is the one that I want to get rid of. So one of my favorite EQs is the McDSP E6. To me, it's one of the
Mine
most
too.
musical. It doesn't, and we did this the other day. I was teaching at LMU at Loyola, and one of the kids in the back of the room, because I kept going to the E6, he goes, you know, every time you put that on, the sound gets like warmer. Like it doesn't get brighter, or it doesn't get, and so the E6 is for me the EQ that I go to find. There's always a frequency in a vocal. It could be from, you know, it could be from 95 to 2K or whatever. I mean, I got to find the frequency. There's usually a couple of frequencies I got to get rid of before I do anything. And when I get rid of those frequencies, it allows me, A, maybe not to have to brighten the vocal, or B, it allows me to compress it before I do anything next. So to me, the really crucial thing when it comes to vocals is EQing them first and finding frequencies you're getting. You got to get rid of stuff before you do anything, because there's always frequencies in vocals. I mean, there is rarely a vocal that's perfectly.
They're singers. They're
Yeah.
human. Hey, Chongor, can I add a B part to that?
Yeah, go for it.
Do you start with a vocal when you start your mix?
The vocal comes in really early on. Like I am very foundational. Dave and I were talking earlier about building, you know, how we started the conversation about art and how its colors and its depth, but also as kids I did a lot of construction like you did, and learned a lot about.
I did a lot of deconstruction too.
Yeah, well, I do a lot of deconstruction and mixes. I'll pull that stuff down. But you know, you're framing you got to have a blueprint, which is your vision on the end result, and you got to find out where that is. So you got to push the faders up. You got to see what you got, you know, and then then I'll pull it down to like, okay, what are the main, where's the DNA? Is it bass, drums, and some instrument? Is it the piano? Is it a couple of guitars? Is it acoustic? Is it Eddie?
But at this time, you're listening to the vocals too, though.
I keep pushing in a vocal. I'll go vocal and I'll pull it down, vocal and I'll pull it down. And I'll get to the point where I'll have my backing track with just the most minimal amount of information. So I can then go back into the vocal and see how everything's going to interact with the vocal. Because in vocal-driven music, the vocal is
absolutely.
And to me, the snare is the vocal of the instrument. Like the thing that's going to be in the vocal's face is the snare. So you got to have a snare that commands attention but doesn't take away from the vocal. And that's.
I never thought about that, but the snare is so important to me, and I guess that's why.
Sean, we're two more.
Zach Gormley. If you were given a project with a single guitar DI, how would you approach thickening and layering the guitar sound?
Ooh, great question.
There are a lot of great, and this is where plugins have really raised the game on the DI. And if you don't have, say you don't have you don't have an amp, you don't have a silent sister speaker, cab like Rivera makes a silent sister that can literally sit next to you in a mix room, so you can actually use your heads.
Wow.
And you can come out of the head and you can go into, like, say, the Rivera Rock Crusher, which is like a DI with EQ and stuff. Okay, so you don't have that. So you can't actually reamp from your DI, because your DI will allow you to reamp. So if you're recording and you really don't trust your guitar sounds, you can always DI and reamp them. So you don't have amps, you don't have that. You're going to have to go to a plug-in. So you're going to have to reach for Waves Guitar, Native Instruments, guitar, whatever the guitar rack. So that's where I'll go, and I'll basically build my guitar sound out of whatever I find is the best. IK has, Fender, 11 has some. It's like, is it metal? Is it rhythm? So the DI will allow me then to use one of those plugins to build a guitar sound out of,
A couple of my favorites, by the way, are the Brainworks Rock Racks.
There you go.
And the UAD Engel is special.
Yeah, the Engel, they just showed up with that. Yeah.
That's special.
Last one, Chongor.
Jason Constantine. With mixing a lot of different styles of music, do you approach all genres somewhat similarly, or does each style of music dictate how you approach the mix?
Similarly in the fact that I am who I am, my ears, I am, my personality, my, any given day I am going to listen through my ears. That's what I am, that's what I do. But obviously if I'm doing, a Devil Driver record that has really fast BPM, double kick drums, I won't be using the same stereo bus compression that I'd be using on like the record I recently mixed, the Cab Mo record, which is a lot of acoustic instruments and doesn't need the fast release of a heavy metal sound. So releases on your stereo bus compression are changing for every kind of either song.
What are you listening for when you set the release?
It's a lot of it is how the kick drum, how the bass, how those instruments are going to push against the mix. Rock music, I want to pump. I actually want to hear the compression sort of pump in somewhat in the rhythm of what doesn't clump up my mix. So if you have too long a release in fast rock music, the bass is going to get swallowed up it's going to be coming back while it's still trying to push against it. So you can go with a longer release on your mix bus and have it generally more invisible, but you might be taking away dynamics away from your mix and sort of pasting it, flatlining it, so your instruments become cardboard cutouts.
Your go-to compressor for that is what?
I'm really a fan of this Dramastic Obsidian because it has a high pass on it.
What's it an emulation
It's like an
of?
SSL. It's very much. It's very much It's the cleaner side of an SSL compressor. I was a big fan of a C1 for a long time, but I always used the high pass. I always had a sidechain high pass. For years I'd mixed through Neves, but they had such a fast attack. When I started to realize what they were taking away when your ears. Ignorance can be bliss sometimes. You listen back to stuff you did. You listen back to stuff you did, and you're like, wow, how did I ever do that? I didn't even know the tools I was using. It was all instinct.
One of the things that you alluded to earlier when you were teaching at LMU, and we see you often at the SAE events that Bridget Gardner has, or various and sundry things. You've always been a friend of the show. we are going to be leaning on you for all the other stuff we got coming up. Is that okay? We bug you.
You have me 250%. I give you 300%. No, I'm such a supporter of you guys and everything you do.
Thanks.
Your show, you as people. I mean, I'll say it again. I believe that you guys are a huge contribution.
Thanks.
If this show didn't exist, if the energy you put out there wasn't being put out there, I think that, interns coming up and young assistants coming up, this is invaluable.
Thank you, man. And
thanks to you.
And no question. And Pensado Awards, we want you part of that. You'll be there?
I'm there. What day?
June 28th. I'll send you all the info. We talked earlier. And part of the reason that we always, so that you guys know, we always discuss this with our guests, is to keep confirming that it's a good idea. Because if it serves them,
it's getting so
it serves
expensive.
you guys.
We need affirmations once in a while.
But you know what? I think you made an interesting point, and this is, certainly Dave and I's philosophy. Why would we shortchange a community that's so important, that no audio would exist without? And if the worst we have to do is risk to do that, and the gift we've been given, then we're always going to hang ourselves out there. So we're hanging ourselves out there on this one, but I think it's going to be extraordinary. I'm going to be very proud of it, and I'm glad you think it's a good idea.
Well, and you used the word risk. I mean, I'm sure, the risk is trying something new that you haven't done, and
bankruptcy.
But I don't. Yeah, I think that with the support of all of us that support you guys, I think and
vice versa.
Yeah, so
we don't have this without you and them.
So I'm down for the Pensado Awards. Yeah, come on, let's do it. Let's do it.
Dave, take us home.
Everybody that beat me in batter's box is not eligible for an award.
Okay.
Just throwing that out there, just throwing that out there. Hey guys, there was so much to cover today with Ross that I didn't get to, but you can. Google him and read some of his articles. He's got a partner named Terry Manning, a forum called Whatever Works. Check that out, a great, great resource. There's so many things to learn from this man. His background and the path that it took him to get from New York to here to this moment in time is pretty spectacular, and I think you guys that call with questions about how to get to where you are to success, this would be a great man to study and learn how he did it. Not just the things he did well, but the things he didn't do well. You can learn from both. And I'm really proud to call Ross my friend. I've learned a lot from him today, a little bit off the show, a little bit on the show. Check him out. We'll see you next time.